Now we will talk about schematic symbols. And I'll demonstrate this with an example.
Símbolos esquemáticos.
Suppose we have a light bulb and a battery.
Se utilizan
and we're going to
diferentes
connect
símbolos
them with some wires like
especiales
this.
para los
Now we
diferentes
have a circuit.
componentes y circuitos.
And a lot of times we need a diagram of the circuit. And circuits can get very large and complicated. And the diagrams can get extremely complicated.
Algunos de
And
estos
to make the
símbolos son
diagrams manageable, electricians and engineers often draw circuits, or almost always draw circuits, using special symbols for the different components in the circuits. So instead of drawing this, an electrical engineer would draw something
una línea
like this.
larga y una línea corta son la carga positiva y
Instead of
negativa.
a long thin line next to a little short line, that's a battery. Each pair here would be a cell.
Las
of the
líneas
battery.
rectas
And typically the
simbolizan
long
los
thin
cables.
line is the positive side, and the
La
little
letra
short
V mayúscula
little short
es la
one is the negative
batería
side, and then
y
the
se,
wires coming out would be
se
straight
coloca esta
lines like
letra
this.
bajo las líneas largas
So in reality the
y las
wires
líneas
bend
cortas.
all around, but in the diagrams they're always drawn straight. So we'll put a V here for the voltage source.
Un
next to the
círculo
battery.
con una línea enrollada en el
Let's run the
centro
wires up
o
here.
una línea en zigzag representan la
The bulb would
resistencia.
look like this. This little loop there inside represents the filament, and then this wire coming back down. So that's a schematic diagram that is electrically equivalent to the circuit.
Una línea
And I'll
diagonal
put a R here to represent
significa
some
el
resistance
interruptor,
that the
la
bulb
cual
might
permite
have.
dar o
And we
cerrar
also might have a switch
el
in the circuit.
circuito.
I'll put a break in the wire here and draw this.
Cada parte en el circuito
So imagine this little
tiene
section
un símbolo
right here
esquemático.
being able to flip over into this position so the current can flow. Right now the switch is open and the current doesn't flow, and that would correspond to a little device that we could put over here, an actual device in the circuit.
Además, los diagramas son una manera muy ordenada y
Something like this, maybe a
sistemática
little
para
toggle switch
representar
here,
un
and
circuito
this piece up top
electrónico.
could flip back and forth, an actual switch. And so you see that each thing in the actual circuit has a corresponding schematic symbol. So there's a battery, a light bulb, a switch, and instead of a light bulb up here, we might have just a resistor, and a resistor would look like this, a zigzag line, and that would just have electrical resistance. And it's not uncommon to have a resistor and a light bulb together, something like this. I'll put a resistor down here, and it's very common to use a resistor. I'll move my R over there next to that. It's very common to use a resistor to limit the flow of current from one part of in one part of a circuit. This bulb might only be able to take so much electric current, and so the resistor causes the circuit to have higher resistance to limit the current flow. So there's a simple circuit diagram drawn with schematic symbols, and all the little things that can go into a circuit have a little symbol. And you can see that the diagrams can be kept neat by keeping the lines straight and at right angles. And all of the symbols here that we've gone over, you should know for this class. You should know the schematic symbol for a light bulb, for a switch, for a battery, for a resistor, and you should also know the schematic symbol for a capacitor. Here's a wire. The capacitor is just two parallel lines like that don't touch. That's a capacitor, and we'll see those later on in the course. And just to look at an example, here's a much larger and more complicated electric circuit. This is an amplifier. This is a circuit that will take an electrical signal and amplify it. And one of the key pieces you see here on the right is the speaker. And this is just one example. There are millions of different possible circuits that could be built, and they can get a lot bigger and more complicated than this one. And if you were to study electrical engineering, for example, you would become very, very familiar with diagrams such as this.